Vinland Saga is back this month with another chapter, and this entire chapter shows us more aspects of the battle that is happening between the Lanu and the Norsemen that are here. I love all of the different strategy methods that are in play here, but I also love how Yukimura continuously, almost page after page in this chapter, is showing all of these little nuances that happen during war and combat and the way that people think and the ways that people have to make a split-second decision, alongside the creativity of just the strategy of each side of the fight and the methods that they're using to combat the other. In that sense, I really think this was one of the most exciting and engaging chapters in a long time, even though we don't get to see Thorfinn, we don't get to see Hild, we don't get to see a lot of our main characters except for Einar and Bug Eyes, but even so, there's so much going on in this chapter that I really, really love. Obviously, in the beginning here, we see the Lanu doing this kind of method to put up a shield, like a wooden shield, and walk themselves around the exterior of the fortress in order to get in from the side. And I also love the reveal that we get a couple of pages later, where after they try to go around the side, they get knocked into the water by Cordelia, who is here just using her strength to push them out of the way. And I love just the cold, like, hey, get your friend out of the water. You're not coming around the side. So wonderful method, wonderful non-lethal method of being able to keep them out of the fortress. Other methods that the Lanu are using to try to get into this fortress are burning it down. This is something that I thought was really creative in the last chapter that they showed. And the Norsemen are combating that by quickly grabbing buckets of water, handing them up the line, throwing them down over the top of the fortress. And then you see Bug Eyes here, who, is not a warrior, is not a fighter, and most of these characters are not. These are mostly farmers and people just trying to live, their daily lives that are now kind of compelled to fight because of that. The water strategy is good, though, and it seems to be working for the most part, even though Bug Eyes trips and they all yell at him and blame him, and that, of course, puts the shame onto him of the things that he should be doing or things that he should be doing better. At the same time, I don't blame them, because fucking up right now is something that you don't want to do no matter what. Now is not the time to trip and fall in this situation, or else they really will have their fortress burned down. So I see it from both sides there. But again, you're in this hyper adrenalized situation. There's not really time to think logically about what you're doing. It's just fire, water. That's it, One thing that I really love here is this part with Einar. There's a page here where Einar has a bow and arrow, and of course Einar himself is a farmer. He's a strong dude. He's shown himself to be a very strong character, a very resilient character, but once again, he's not trained for combat. He's not trained for war, and he's definitely not trained to shoot arrows on top of a fortress to keep people out. But still, he's here, he's picking up arms, and he's doing his best to defend our need. He was the one rallying the troops in order to do it, and he feels, I would say, out of all the characters here that we know, he is obviously the most passionate about it because of his history and because of the woman Arnid that he knew, because of the vow that he made with Thorfinn, and because of all the painstaking effort that they put in to establishing their society here. He's not backing down. But just the same, I love this page. There's a page where he grabs an arrow, he's trying to defend the fortress, and he shoots and he hits one of the Lanu, and I love this look on his face. It's this look of like, instinctually, he doesn't want to hurt another person. It's like he wants to be able to defend our need, and he wants to say, no matter what the cost, no matter what I have to do, I'm going to make sure that this establishment stays. But when you actually commit that act of violence on somebody, and if you've never done it, he's a grown adult, he wasn't trained into this kind of lifestyle, right? He wasn't engraved into it like, a number of the other characters that we've seen that have enjoyed it, that have believed in it, that have, had this divine idea that if they do it and they die, they go to Valhalla. He, on the other hand, has been a relatively gentle person most of his life. And being able to do this, being able to actually pick up a weapon, draw it, fire it, and hit somebody and see the damage that you're actually doing to them, is a traumatic experience, or is to most people, or should be to most people, right? Even if you're doing it for the right reasons, or what you believe is the right reason, right? So, what's funny is that there's a movie called The Men That Stare at Goats. And if you like Vinland Saga, I would actually recommend watching this movie. There's some similar themes, but there's a scene in the movie where characters get dropped into Vietnam, and they're immediately met with the opposite force, with the Vietnamese soldiers, and they start firing on the command, but nobody is hitting anybody. And the one character looks around and he notices that like people are like instinctively shooting a little bit higher than they should, thinking that, oh, somebody else will shoot them. I'll be firing with everybody else, but somebody else will get them. Or they'll be distracted where somebody is wounded and it's like, well, I'll go take care of the wounded person. I'll do this. Like everybody was coming up with a reason not to shoot somebody, and he saw this and he was kind of like, it was like an epiphany kind of moment for him of like how most people respond, in those situations, where like there's just this kind of, I don't know, this kind of inherent instinct that we have that like, maybe we don't want to hurt somebody else. Maybe we wish that we didn't have to be here. We wish that we didn't have to be doing this, right? Of course, that's all like pacifist kind of ideology, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that believe the ends justify the means and take them down as quickly as possible, and I understand all that too. And in war, I could definitely understand that being the kind of mindset of the people that you would want to send out if you are engaged in combat. But I just think it's a neat idea. I think it's a neat little aspect of probably how most people would respond. And I got that exact vibe. I got that exact feeling reading this page with Einar, where it's like he's doing what he believes he needs to do, but once he actually does hit somebody, there's this moment of pause of like, I shot somebody with an arrow. What does that mean? Did I kill somebody? Like, what happened? And even, on the flip side of that, of the fact that you are in combat and you should be taking down your opponent as quickly as possible, as he takes the time to watch and see if the person he hit actually died or not, which they did not, he gets hit with an arrow. Now, I didn't expect Einar, like Einar survives this. He's fine. He's doing the best he can do. I didn't expect that this would be like a killing blow or anything, because there's more story, with Einar to be told. But I looked at this situation and I really just saw the complicated nature of all of this, so perfectly displayed. And the way that Yukimura writes it is that, that Yukimura, obviously he has his own ideology, right? But I love the way that he writes Vinland Saga with this sort of neutral angle to it many times, where there's never really any, definitive good guys or bad guys. It's all about people making choices. And oftentimes people making choices in scenarios where you don't have time to think. It's like, what do you do? Do you defend yourself? Do you fight back? Do you run? Do you kill? Do you not kill? There's no time to think about it. You just gotta fucking do something. And in the 2 seconds that Einar took to see if the person that he hit died or not, he got hit because he was taking too much time to think about it, So it shows both sides. It shows the compassionate side of what did I just do? And it also shows the realistic side of war of like, dude, you don't have time to think or you will get hit. And it's all done in a couple of pages and it's all done without dialogue. And I just, I love the nuance of it. I love the bare bones blanket. This is how it is, regardless of trying to appeal to either side of the argument. It just shows you the reality, and I like that about it. So as the chapter goes on, it falls into night. It starts snowing, which is not good also. And the Lanu start taking up shelter within the homes of the Norsemen that are now abandoned because everybody is behind the fortress wall. This guy, I always forget this character's name, but he's saying like, you don't want to get sick. And they're like, we're fine because the Norsemen are over there. And then I love the specific panel where it shows the rats, because that's where the sickness is coming from, which I can't remember. I don't think that the Lanu know that the sickness is specifically coming from the rats. I think they just think that the Norsemen brought the sickness with them and that's where it's coming from. So they blame them as a whole as opposed to looking at the specific things. So they might all start to get super sick here momentarily within a couple chapters. Now we also see that one of the new soldiers makes it inside the fort, but he is badly damaged and he is captured. And before they could really question him very much, a couple of them stab him with spears. that they've crafted, and immediately kill him. And of course, Einar, flips out, like, why did you kill him? We could have used him as a prisoner. We could have used him for negotiation. And everybody starts to come up with justifications as to why they killed him. They say, he's seen the inside of the fortress. We can't let him go. They say, well, a couple of our men died, so this is in honor of them. This is in vengeance of them. And that's how this whole thing always perpetuates itself. It's like one side attacks and it kills people, and now there's vengeance to be had, so we attack the other side, and then it goes on, both sides killing the shit out of each other, and after a while, you forget why you were even fighting in the first place, and the only reason that you're fighting is just to annihilate the other side, and to make sure that you win. And it doesn't matter what gets lost in the process, who dies in the process, and the longer that it goes on, the more justification you find for killing, because the longer it goes on, the more vulnerable your side is. And this, I think this is a perfect display of it here. And again, it's shown in that kind of neutral way of just showing what happens. It's just showing us exactly what happens in situations like this. The last part of the chapter is the next day, and it's showing that the fortress is doing its job. They are being very vigilant about putting out the fires as quickly as possible. They're not allowing the Lanu to get around the edges. Things seem to be, I would say a little bit at a stalemate. And Stark sees this, and he's like, hey, maybe all we got to do is hold out. Maybe the Lanu will start to get sick, and this could actually work. And Ivyar is just like, he's out of, dude, he's broken. He realizes that he himself cannot contribute, So it's like, I tried, I put myself on the front lines. As soon as this happened, I got out the sword. I thought the sword would fix everything. I thought if I had the sword, I would be fine. And he wasn't. And he lost an arm, or lost a hand. And now it's like, well, what can he do? Lost the sword, can't wield anything, can't fire a bow. He's just useless in this situation, and he realizes it. And I think that this is a hurtful thing for him, because as much as I've always liked Ivyar as a character. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I agree with everything that he does and says, but I've always liked him as a character. And seeing this aspect of him now, after he was so gung-ho about, wanting to protect people and wanting to make sure the village was, situated fine, and being, a little bit untrustworthy of Lanu, and just being like, this guy that's like, I'm going to take charge if I have to. I'm not saying I agree with him, but like I just appreciate him as a character, because that's how I imagine somebody would be in that situation. And he was the first one to draw the sword, and the first one to fight back, and the first one to realize the expense of that. But now the Lanu are trying something different. After a couple of days of this and not being able to get inside the fortress, now they have resorted to getting into their canoes, and they are driving them around the back side of the fortress in order to flank them. And this is going to be really fucking bad. This is going to be bad, because if they have all the focus on the front of the fort trying to put out fires, it seems like that's what they're doing. Like, they're putting out fires and they're shooting arrows to try to keep them back. That's about the strategy that's happening right here. If the Lanu come around the backside in the canoes, well, I mean, the Lanu have to find a way to, they'll probably park the canoe a little bit away from the fort, trudge through the water. I don't know what weapons they're bringing. I don't see any weapons drawn on the panel, but I imagine they have spears or axes with them or something. And they're probably just going to charge. They're probably going to charge in, and the Norsemen are going to have to use what they have at their disposal, which also seems like spears, which is a good way to have somebody keep their distance and everything. But they're not going to survive both sides being attacked at the same time. And they only have a limited amount of people there anyways to defend. So this is going to be absolute devastation. This is going to be absolute devastation. And I think the Norse's days are very, very soon to be up. Now, we don't get to see Thorfinn in this chapter, but the last time that we saw him, he was still out of commission, not doing well. Hild was still in good physical condition, so I don't know if her and Polmuk would make their way to the fortress together, although, it's quite the distance they have to go to just get up there and then to be able to get inside. So, they would have just as much trouble getting into the fortress as anybody else, and I don't even know what they would be able to do. At this point, I feel like retreat is kind of the only option. But then what do you do with Thorfinn, right? It's like, do you leave him there? Like, I don't know, man. And Einar's not going anywhere. You know, he's already made his line in the sand, and I think he's past the point of no return. I don't think that he's, you know, like I said, like he still instinctively doesn't want to kill somebody, but I don't think he's willing to leave at any cost. I think that he would still be putting his life on the line no matter what, as far as that goes. So, and I don't know if you could convince him otherwise. I think the only person that would even have the slightest chance of that would be Thorfinn, but they're so disconnected now, I don't know how they would ever meet up again. Unless Thorfinn's messages were, you know, transferred through Hild, which is possible. But Einar and Hild, you know, I mean, they're part of the same team, but they've never had the kind of connection that like Hild and Thorfinn have had, you know, or Thorfinn and Einar, you know, they've never had like that kind of a bond. So I honestly don't know, man. I just see more chapters working like this, you know, seeing the struggle of the fight that's happening. And I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot of Norseman death in the next chapter. So that's where I'm at. Anyways, guys, if you like this video, tell me all your thoughts, theories, and ideas about Vinland Saga and what you think is going to happen next, along with what you just think of this chapter in general. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I deeply appreciate it. Please give the video a thumbs up and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. And if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have Patreon, channel memberships, merch store, and all that stuff linked down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.